So, Carissa Holmes is a performing artist and an author and a certified accredited EFT tapping practitioner, which is super cool. She's been working in the healing arts for over 15 years, and her mission is to empower people to heal and inspire them to create. She's going to talk about going from nervous to nailed it, overcoming stage fright with EFT. So, welcome to the stage, Carissa.
Thank you, Janelle. I am so excited to be here. I'm so glad you invited me to this. It's just a wonderful opportunity to share what I know very deeply is that every person in this room has something incredibly special and helpful to share with the world. And sometimes it's just a little bit of stage fright that's getting in the way of us sharing the thing. So here I am, and I'm very glad to be here. I am one of those people who had the worst stage fright ever. Like the worst that you could picture. I had a history of early trauma, so that contributed to it. But I would have these crazy freeze responses. There were times where people would ask me my name and I couldn't respond. Not that I didn't want to respond. My body couldn't allow that to happen. The time that I remember the most strongly is I auditioned to get into this high school for the arts, right? I had this strong desire to sing and perform. And my parents and I were walking out of orientation and we're walking down this long hallway by the gym to go to the parking lot and leave. And there was another student and their family coming the opposite direction. And they got close to our family and the student looked at me and just waved and I said, "Hi." And I froze. I couldn't, my lower body was still moving because we had been walking, but I couldn't make my hand go up to wave. My throat got so tight that I couldn't breathe or make a sound to say hi. And it's so hard to explain. In my mind, I didn't feel nervous about saying hi to another person in the hallway. It wasn't in my head. My body just had this intense reaction to another person wanting to interact with me. So it took me a very long time to unpack why I would have those freeze responses. And then there were many years of really crappy performances, frankly, where I would just be super nervous. I wasn't frozen, but my hands would be shaking. My stomach would get so tight, I couldn't even take a breath to sing or play my flute. I would shake. It was pretty brutal. So if anyone knows what you may be going through with this thing, I definitely do. And as you might imagine, being in a school for the arts, I got a lot of advice from professors. I went on to major in music performance, so I was still in it, still dealing with it even at that age. And my professors would tell me things, my friends would tell me things. So I'm just going to bust real quick 3 myths about things people keep saying that help stage fright that can actually make it worse or just not be helpful.
You need to share your screen. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No screen share just yet. I'm going to start the slideshow right after this, but thank you for being on it. Okay. The first one is do not picture people being in their underwear. First of all, that is just creepy. And it's very distracting. It pulls you out of what you're trying to share and into a coping mechanism that's just kind of creepster. So I would skip that one and it doesn't work anyway. Number 2, surprisingly enough, taking really deep breaths. It's really important that if you're taking these huge inhales and you're forcing all this air in and it's almost like you're hyperventilating, you could actually trigger a panic attack. You can have more anxiety than you had before if you're forcing really deep, dramatic breaths. The helpful breath is extending exhale. We'll talk more about that later. So the third myth that you also hear a lot from people that helps with stage fright and doesn't really is make eye contact with one person in the room and just talk to them until you feel better. But what I can tell you from experience is that if you're in a full-on fight, flight, freeze response and you make eye contact with a person in the audience and you just lock into them, what you're going to do is make them feel extremely uncomfortable, maybe borderline nervous themselves. We're social creatures. Our nervous systems can pick up on how someone else is feeling, even if they're not saying it. So if you're in this and you're staring at this poor person and trying to make yourself feel better, you're just going to make their nervous system wonder what the heck is going on, where the saber-toothed tiger is that must be waiting to pounce. And it's just not going to help. So I would encourage you to avoid those 3 myths. What does work, and I will now share my screen. Give me one little moment to find it. Dun, 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 dun. Overcome stage fright and fear of public speaking. And I will not be able to see the chat while I'm in here. So, Janelle, could you be a mouthpiece? There's one question that I'm going to ask.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So, first of all, let's understand what's going on here. What actually is stage fright? It's a subtype of social anxiety, and it comes with feelings, emotions, and sensations. Those are 3 different things. Emotions are very primal. They're coming from the lower part of our brain, and they just bubble up and we feel them and we don't get to think about them. Our feelings are more the thoughts and judgments that we have about our sensations and emotions, and that kind of head game aspect of it. And then, of course, a physical sensation is something like the tightness in your stomach or the tightness of your throat, whatever you're experiencing when you feel super nervous. Now, for those of us who are here focused on speaking, glossophobia is the technical term for the fear of public speaking. What I can tell you from my practice, fear of public speaking, stage fright, performance anxiety, they all come from a very similar root, and we're going to talk about that root in just a moment. So it's not too important for you to get caught up on distinctions with that. Now, this is not really considered a phobia, stage fright, but trust me, I know it can be very debilitating, especially if your call is to present or to speak or to get onto a stage because you can't do your thing. And unfortunately, more and more of us are experiencing this now because we're all asked to be actors and actresses. We're on camera right now. And how many of you feel uncomfortable or a little vulnerable or a little exposed because you're being recorded? Yeah, we all feel this thing. Speaking of the root cause of stage fright, what do you think it is? It doesn't have to be super personal, your answer. Just what do you think is really at the bottom of these causes of stage fright? And then, Janelle, if you would maybe just unmute and give me a couple as people start to respond. There's no right or wrong answer. I just love to see where people's thoughts are with this.
Okay. Lack of confidence is one. Afraid of being embarrassed by saying the wrong things. Fear of the unknown. Yep.
Okay.
Not prepared.
Oh, yeah.
They're coming in fast and furious. Hang on. Fear of being judged. Fear, uncertainty. Afraid of people's impressions about me. Self-esteem. These are great.
These are wonderful answers, very insightful answers. These are all very much valid branches that are coming off of the main root. And the root, the very, very root of all of those reasons you just typed in the chat is inner conflict. You are trying to do something that your body does not feel safe doing. So for whatever the reason is, if you think people are going to judge you or you're going to be ostracized from some community or you're going to say something stupid and people think you're stupid, this is all coming from a very primal part of us. We are social creatures, and being with our social group meant life. So anything we do that steps out of being super duper quiet and safe can trigger that part of our body that says, I don't feel safe doing this. No, don't do it. Cancel the speech. Have a technical issue. Pretend you don't care. Anything. Just don't do that risky thing that you're trying to do. So, knowing that all your answers were correct and they lead back to the same root, which is that unsafe feeling, that inner conflict, what's the cure for all stage fright? Safety. If we can help the body, it is the body, feel safe with what we're doing, then we can present and perform without all of those reactions being in the way, because the feeling of unsafe that was causing the conflict has been resolved. Now, what the heck do we do to make ourselves feel safe? If you'll see off to the right there, EFT, we're going to talk about that in just a second. We're actually going to practice it so you can start to feel it. But for right now, I just want you to be able to grok what's going on. You're an iceberg. I know you always thought you were cool, but you're like extra cool because you're an iceberg. And we're all little icebergs floating in the superconscious sea of the human mind, everyone's collective mind, right? We're made of it. The iceberg is made of the ocean. But the only part that we see and we use to interact with other people is a very small portion, that 10% of the iceberg there that's above the water. That is your social media profile, the emotions you're aware of. It's your willpower when you go to start a new habit to help yourself. All of this stuff is residing in the 10% of our mind that is conscious and we're aware of. Below the surface, that's where stage fright lives. That's where our adverse childhood experiences are imprinted. That's where our phobias live. That's where our conditioning from childhood lives. The 90% of us that's driving all of our life results, that's where it lives. So if we're only coming at this thing with strategies from the conscious mind, we're not really going to have a whole lot of power behind what we're doing because we've left 90% of ourselves in the old habit. The beauty of EFT is that it crosses that boundary. It works on the conscious mind as well as the unconscious and the preconscious. It can dive up and down in the water or come out any way we need it to help us with this thing. So let's learn a little bit more about EFT tapping. Emotional freedom technique, that's what EFT stands for. It is evidence-based and it is a somatic release therapy. Somatic means of the body. And we work with that body-mind connection, all the feedback the body sends us in a very thorough and gentle way that is trauma-informed to break down that fear that your body has of performing or presenting. And what we do is we tap with our fingers on various meridian endpoints on the face, on the body, and the hands. And these are the same points an acupuncturist would use a needle on, but we're not using needles. We're just tapping, thankfully. And we do this while we're present with those uncomfortable feelings of stage fright. The key here, there's this tendency to think that EFT helps you tap stuff away. That is not what it does. It helps us to accept ourselves with the stage fright, with the uncomfortable sensations, and to have compassion for that part of ourself that feels afraid. And once we get into that self-acceptance and compassion, that's when the magic happens. And just to clarify, EFT is not for tapping away bad feelings. All our feelings are wonderful and good and deserve to go through their whole life cycle. It's not for getting rid of a bothersome aspect of your personality. No part of you is bad and needs to be thrown away. It's not a fix-it tool, despite how it appears. And it's also not something that you should completely DIY if you know you have some major psychological issues or some deeper traumas. You shouldn't be working on these things by yourself. That's really not appropriate. You deserve and need support from a practitioner who knows how to work with that. With those clarifications in mind, the purpose of EFT is not to tap away or stage fright or whatever you don't want to feel. It's to create a safe container. Remember the importance of safety, where you can fully feel the uncomfortable stuff, all the feels, without getting overwhelmed by them. A lot of times our fear is that if we let ourselves feel this, it's going to overwhelm us. But if you have that safe container and EFT, you can feel it, let it go through its cycle, and then knock it out of the park. These are just some of the things that EFT has been clinically proven to help. Anxiety increases your tolerance for something like performing, which is very high sensation. Cortisol levels come down. Let me tell you how this has helped me. I had chronically elevated cortisol, really helped with that. And there's a whole other list of things that we could go into that I just don't have time to dive into. This is just an indication of how you could be helped by EFT. And like I mentioned, it is in fact proven to work in a clinical setting. This particular study was one done with veterans who had PTSD, and they studied EFT compared with not just having regular therapy. And there was a significant reduction in these veterans' cortisol levels with the EFT compared to talk therapy, not compared to nothing or just not having any intervention, but even compared with regular therapy, the EFT brought those cortisol levels down much faster. Pardon me, I'm getting over COVID, so I'm a little scratchy. Okay, now the fun part. I'm going to stop sharing because we're going to tap now. I'm back. Okay. So we're going to get a chance to experience what EFT relief feels like. Whether you feel nervous right now or not doesn't matter. We're just going to go through the points and I'm going to teach them to you as we're tapping. And we're going to do a method called tap and breathe. You don't have to say any words. You don't have to tune into anything especially. All you're going to do is tap the point and we're going to inhale gently. Don't need to do a big dramatic inhale. Remember, that doesn't help. And then we're going to extend our exhale, like just a totally relaxed, chill, all the time in the world exhale. Okay. So the first point, and you can tap along with me as we're doing this. The first point is on the side of the hand. You could tap either with your other hand or you can go like this. It's very useful when you're in a car. You can just bang your hand on the steering wheel. It really helps with road rage. I wouldn't know anything about that, but it does help. So this is the side of the hand point. And we're just going to take a gentle, normal inhale and exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. One more, just gentle inhale. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's okay if your exhale doesn't last as long as mine. I have really big lungs. Just however long works for you, as long as it's longer than your inhale. Next point is this eyebrow point right here where your eyebrow starts. You can feel a little divot on your orbital bone. That's a spot. You can use multiple fingers if you're not sure if you're getting it. Inhaling gently. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nice. Let's switch to the other side. Bilateral stimulation helps stimulate the vagus nerve, the parasympathetic response, which is the rest and digest. So just enjoying that sensation. Inhale again, just gently. And exhale, hum. Good. Humming stimulates the vagus nerve. Again, it helps with that shifting into rest and digest. The next point we're going to cover is the side of the eye, side of the orbital bone, so close to your eye. So just gently tapping. And we're going to inhale again. Exhale, hum. Good. And just letting your shoulders ease down your back and down away from your ears. They don't need to be up there. There's no good reason for that. Let's come to the other side of the eye. Inhaling gently. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and even maybe 6. You have a little more space. Good. The next point we're going to stimulate is under the eye again. So close to the eye, right on the orbital bone, there's a little dent. You can feel it right there. Just gently tapping and inhale. And exhale with a hum. Good. Maybe switching to the other eye. Bilateral stimulation, inhaling. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. And if you want to hum or if you'd rather just count, just take your pick. Either one is just as effective. The next point, between your nose and your lip right here. It's hard for me to talk when I'm smacking myself in the face right here, but you get the idea. Inhaling. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale and just relaxed inhale. Everything is all right here, right now. You're just fine. And exhale, hum. Beautiful. Just a couple of more points now. Coming to this under the lip. It's called the chin point, and you will see some people, unfortunately, tapping on the end of their chin. That's not the point. It's right in that kind of dent between your lip and your chin. So just tapping right there. Again, it's hard for me to talk to you while I'm tapping this point, but inhale. And then exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just melting. 6. Inhale once more. And just pretend to be a stick of butter, just melting down. 1, 2, 3. All is well. 4, 5, 6. Great. Just a couple more points. The collarbone point can be a little difficult to find anatomically. It's close to where your collarbone meets your sternum, that juncture there. So you can just take your hand and tap that whole spot on both the left and right sides if you don't want to have to be super precise. This is a very soothing point. If you're familiar with butterfly hugs, they tap that point. So go for it. It's a good one. Inhaling. And exhale, hum. Good. Drawing another inhale, letting yourself feel heavy on your seat. Just really be here. It's safe to be here. It's good to be here. And when you're ready, just exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. All right. The next point is under the arm, right where a tank top or a bra strap would hit you. You can just go up and down the side body there if you like. There are a lot of points. And just inhaling and maybe stretch your inhale like you're getting up in the morning and you just want to get all that nice air in there, just in a relaxed way, no pressure. And then exhale with a nice hum. Good. All the time in the world. No need to rush the exhale. What else do you have to do but breathe, right? Just tapping, inhaling. And again, just sip a little more air in at the top if that feels good. Then exhale, hum. All right. We're coming to the last point. It's on the top of the head. There are many points converging here. So we just pat the top of the head. I promise I won't ask you to rub your stomach at the same time. So confusing. Just tapping the top of the head, drawing that nice, nourishing breath in. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Inhaling. Maybe bring your arm up overhead and just stretch. No reason why you shouldn't just let your whole body enjoy. And let's exhale. Flutter your lips. It doesn't matter how funny you look. Horses do that all the time to release tension, and they don't care what they look like. Okay, go ahead and just pause your tapping now. We've gone through the whole sequence of points. You've stimulated all the meridians that we do in EFT. And just notice how you're feeling right now. Notice how your belly and your diaphragm area, how does that feel now? Does your jaw or your shoulders maybe feel a little more relaxed? If anyone would like to share in the chat how they're feeling now compared to how they were, I can see the chat now and I'll be able to see if you have a question. Just notice your body. Do you feel more open in through here when we're performing and we're presenting? Sometimes when we're anxious or we're feeling stage fright, we tend to collapse into a C shape. And if you're not shaped like a C and your heart is radiating, you physically and energetically and emotionally are more available to your audience. So maybe you feel a different sensation up here than you felt before. seeing some people are feeling relaxed. That's good. This tap and breathe technique, again, it's very simple, feeling more open. I see that. This technique is simple. You can use it right before you go on stage. It is remarkably effective when you're in the moment, but you can also use it at some point during the day or throughout the day as a self-care practice. Every time you tap like this, you're training your nervous system how to have greater capacity to cope and how to get out of that fight, flight, freeze that we tend to be in our daily lives in this modern world. Tapping shifts your nervous system back and says, okay, body, it's safe. Nervous system, there's no real threat. I know the world feels stressful. Let's learn how to shift back into that parasympathetic dominant state. Let's lengthen the breath and stimulate the body with this technique. So it can be tremendously helpful for anything. If you practice it every day, you develop your capacity, practice it in the moment, it helps knock down that anxiety. So that is what I wanted to share with you here today with EFT. I thank you for your attention, and I truly hope that you will start using this easy DIY practice of tap and breathe so that you can share your thing, so that you can really shine, because I know you have something to share that's remarkable. And it makes me happy to know that people are empowered to do that sharing and to feel good while they're doing it.
Yes, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Between that and the PQ reps, I'm feeling relaxed.
Yeah, an hour, right?
Yeah. That was fabulous. Tapping is really powerful. So thank you for sharing that with us, and not just sharing information, but having us do it with you is super powerful. And now people can go and do it on their own because they've done it with you and they've experienced it. If you have any questions for Carissa, definitely drop them in the chat or raise your digital hand.
I do see one question. Someone asked, what happens if you're suddenly called to stage and you don't have enough time to do the tapping? Oh, yeah.
We got your website in there. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
The greatest thing that you can do, the most effective in the moment when you don't even have time to tap, is extending your exhale. It's not about how much air you can force into your body. Again, that can cause more anxiety. But if you just extend your exhale, and especially if you can use your voice to make that humming sound, it doesn't matter if you're a singer, it does not have to sound pretty, but extended exhale plus stimulating the vagus nerve with that sound, because the vagus nerve innervates the larynx, the diaphragm, like the whole thing. If you can do that, even 5 seconds, I would say, before you go out onto the stage, and while you're on stage, take note of your exhales. If your exhales are getting short and constricted and you're starting to get tight, that's probably the best thing for stage fright that you can do if you don't have time for a whole round of tapping.
Yeah, it's really good. Especially with the inhale not being super deep. I've done that before and almost hyperventilated.
Yep. I pretty much gave myself a panic attack. They take deeper breaths, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to pass out.
Yeah, it's interesting too about the exhale being longer than the inhale. That's really good information. I didn't know that. Lewis has a question. Come on up, Lewis. There you go.
Yeah, thanks for your session. I really appreciate all of that and the tapping. I think you made a point about the eye contact. So if you look people in the eyes, that then they could get more excited and more agitated. And I think one of the techniques I hear people talk all the time is when you're speaking with people, you need to look them in their eyes and engage with them in that way. So that seems to conflict with the general advice on making eye contact. Maybe I got it wrong. I'm not sure.
No, you're right. I did say that. If you're feeling very nervous and you're in a fight flight response, if you focus on a person, especially if you're focused on just one person for a long period of time, staring at them and making eye contact with them, and they can pick up on the fact that you're nervous, that can cause them to feel really uncomfortable and singled out, and they'll start feeling nervous too, because we're social creatures. So I would just say, if you tend to be really nervous, we would, as singers, we'd say, aim for that imaginary person in the back of the room. So you're filling the whole room, you're projecting your energy for the whole room. But until you start to calm down just a little bit, maybe don't focus on one person and stare at them like, please help me. Like, we're going to sense that you're super uncomfortable. And not everybody can deal with that kind of hot attention from a speaker. So that's where, does that make sense to you, or where I was going with that?
He's muted again. Oh. You can just nod.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. One thing I've learned to do, and this actually calms me down, is I'll look at people for about the length of time of a sentence, and then I move to the next person. But staring them down, no. Yeah. I go from person to person, so everybody around them feels like they're included, and you're looking at them too. That's helped me a lot.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Oh, Al Chan, come on up.
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot for the EFT techniques. But I notice a lot of EFT practitioners, whenever you tap a certain point, they'll start off with the negative things, trying to clear off everything first. Then only they go on the next round coming back. Then they'll talk about the positive affirmation every time on each point you're tapping. So basically, you're talking about you're not talking about those positive affirmations each time you're doing that. Because it can actually clear up the whole entire system of what your internal belief, the naysayers, and also whatever the positive things that you're talking to yourself and also on a daily basis.
Yeah, so it's very important to have that honesty where you say what you're actually feeling, like I feel nervous or I feel inadequate or I don't feel like I have any self-confidence. But then we wire in at the end of the session, I'm more than enough. Of course I have enough confidence. Of course I can do this. So it's a way of accepting and acknowledging the negative thing that is there rather than bypassing it and ignoring it. Because what you resist persists. And you let it come up and have its life, and then you go back to the positive that you know you are and you know you got this.
Thanks, Al. Yep. I have a quick question. Do you need to go through tap all the points every time you do it, or can you just do 1 point or 2 points? Or
in the moment, if you're just feeling drawn to collarbone and you just want to tap collarbone while you're working with something, that's fine. As long as you know that eventually you want to cover all the meridians, because things live in the body. And if you cover all the meridians, you'll cover the whole body. Whereas if you don't and you just stay with 1 point all the time, there may be something living somewhere that could only be helped by you moving to the next meridian endpoint. So eventually it's important to do the whole series. But if you're just feeling drawn to 1 point at a certain moment, then yeah, just go for it. Trust yourself.
Okay, awesome. Brenda, come on up. Hi, Brenda. Nice to see you.
Okay, so am I on? Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify this. We are not doing anything negative in the way you've taught us, right?
Oh, no. The tap and breathe, it's impossible to hurt yourself with that.
So this is enough rather than do the old way of doing it where you have the negative one and then the positive one. This is taking the place of that.
This one it's a DIY that's safe for you to use by yourself. I would say once you start getting into using words and psychoanalyzing yourself, that's where we can hit pitfalls with EFT, and it's much better to work with a practitioner to unpack the deeper stuff, the psychological stuff. Even I work with an EFT practitioner because sometimes I don't see my own stuff and they can easily see it. They're like, oh, you're just getting stuck with this. And I'm like, duh. So the tap and breathe is something you can do on your own without question. It's helpful and it's not going to lead you into any pitfalls.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Sure. Great question.
Really appreciate you, Chris. I'm so glad I met you. I'm so glad you came to I think it was the Speakeasy Cafe or something that I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And became one of my speakers here. It's been great listening to you present, and you're awesome. Your knowledge is awesome. And I'm super excited. I actually have tried EFT before and I never really saw any difference. I didn't see any benefits at all. And I thought, oh, this doesn't work. This is stupid. I'm just tapping myself. But today, doing that with you, it really did feel a difference. And so you have made me a believer.
Yes.
Yeah. Just, I think maybe it was just being able to just tap and breathe to start with. For me, I really felt a lot more relaxed and a lot more open and just more like in my body and not in my head so much. And so I really appreciate that very much. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you all for your great questions.
Awesome. And again, you'll see her again later on tonight, and she'll hang around probably for a few minutes. If you have more questions, you can throw in the chat for her.
Yes, I will do that.
All right.